Hello. Once again, this is Write Once, Read Many. I'm gonna get the link out there real quick for the stream. Alright. Gonna give it a second for people to file in. Hello, Greg. Lower the volume on this a bit, and then say the audience participation reminder for 23.5. We've got, what Tinker device would you have Defiant make and maintain for you as penance for the way he wronged you in the past? Since, you know, we each have our own individual stories of being wronged by Defiant when he was Arms Master. What a bastard. I wasn't sure what to say on the themes for this chapter. I mean, there's stuff that happens, like the reunion of Taylor and the Undersiders, as well as the reunion of Taylor and Tecton, but, you know, I feel like reunion is not one of the overarching themes of Worm. It's just something that happens a couple times in this chapter, so it was like I was dubious about writing that as a theme. But I don't know. So themes, inconclusive. Taylor says, the waiting was the worst part to kick off the chapter, but I also wouldn't really put waiting as a theme. Actually, you know what? Waiting for the other shoe to drop is a theme of Worm, where they expect escalation, so they almost know it's going to happen. So whenever something happens, they're waiting for the next escalated reaction. So waiting for the other shoe to drop can be a theme. Yeah. Alright. And hopefully there's not too much, I'm not sure if the theme song is picking up on the mic. I had to just play it over the speaker for now. But, as it fades out, I think we'll be good, and finally the speed draw completes. I quite like the scene we've got here. Okay, good. Greg confirms that it sounds fine. Cool. So, I guess I'm gonna get into the chapter itself. Taylor is still on the Dragoncraft ship that she got onto at the end of the last chapter. She's with Defiant Dragon, but they're sort of mostly doing their own thing as they communicate with other people. And she's sort of watching screens from the background. Apparently a bunch of capes are going to show up, but she's still just worried. Like, she'd be worried if there were low numbers, but she has a different worry given that there are high numbers, that there might be problems. Oops, Alt Vic showed up as the Plebeian Reads account. Sorry. So, and yes, I guess now is the moment to say, good work on the art again, Victoria, as always. So, we get to see Dragon and Defiance sort of scaled power armor. Their scaly dragon suits. Anyway, so YouTube celebrity plebeian reads, says Greg. Yeah. The famed and newly famous YouTube channel. I'm like Hannah Montana, says Vic. Just like that. Just a normal girl in the day. Oh boy. So let's see here. So yeah. She was worried. She'd be worried if there were very few capes, but since she's seeing so many small teams, she's worried about the lack of cohesion. Vic also says, but by night, celeb YouTuber plebeian reads. I had been thinking to ask myself and then to ask you if you wanted me to plug that on these streams, the way that I plug Scarlett's stream on these streams, and I probably will. Because why not? No. Okay, well, this will be the... Oh, you'll plug it. Okay. That's fair. We'll do that when you are on the next chapter. I almost said whose chapter it was, but, we'll allude to that at the end of this chapter summary. Obviously, veteran readers know whose chapter it is anyway, so... Taylor is sort of sorting out her costume. They've got boxes of butterflies for her here. I guess they're in one of the other dragon craft, but she's sort of putting together her costume setup, and she's got like a pack that doesn't match, and she's got the bodysuit that's not the same color as like the armor panels or whatever. And then the wing setup is the sort of lighter colors, the light gray and white. Vic and I had a whole thing where we were trying to figure out what the costume is like, because something that Regent says later on is kind of incongruous with everything else. But that's fine. That's no problem. There's this line here. I'd stripped down, pulling on my old costume. They'd said something about painting it, but I wasn't sure I wanted to wait for that. I left the major armor components off. So yeah, the core costume that she wears is like the bodysuit and stuff are the old colors, I guess. I don't know. And I can't tell what color lenses she has on her costume. I swear I was searching through all of Arc 24, couldn't for the life of me find it. They never say the world was tinted blue / the world was tinted yellow. So yeah, dunno. And then let's see here. So she's getting rid of the utility compartment because she's gonna have the wings set up. So she sort of has a little pack instead. But they have hand control gloves as well as internal mechanism bug controlled mechanisms for the wing setup, which I'll just describe now because they talk about it later, but also has these tiny little bug arms that she can use as a second set of arms, as though, some sort of insect with 6 limbs. You just gotta make her more of a bug, and then everything's good. So she puts bugs in the setup to try and test it out. She sort of takes her costume gloves off, puts the gloves for this flight suit on, then puts her gloves over it, the armor portions. It's weird because there's like armor panels, but I would also consider the spider silk web to be armor itself, so armored gloves-ish. And then she's realizing that they had made this whole setup for her in 2 hours, and they're saying that it's basically like a kludged together version of Kid Win's anti-grav stuff with other pieces they already had. And then Vic says the outfit was incredibly confusing. Yeah. I think the thing is that the previous chapter had been like, it's all going to be painted. And then this chapter was like reverted, like, I don't know, it's not painted yet. And then she kind of talks like, I didn't put it all on at once. So maybe she was waiting for some individual pieces to be painted, but she doesn't really specify. And then Regent confuses the matter in what felt like was maybe an older line from a draft where it was fully the new costume colors. Sometimes I think about that on really fast writing. I'm like, this feels like maybe a draft oversight thing where they had to speed change something. In this case, Wildbow had to speed change a thing. But maybe not. Maybe I'm just not understanding what he was going for. It's funny that the wings are a modified version of the cape named Stinger, because we had heard about Stinger like at the beginning of the story as like a totally random person, and then they remind us missile theme, not wasps and bees. But I think that Stinger was a villain tinker. I don't know if I'm remembering right. And then she's got pretty good acceleration with the wings, 0 to 45 in about 3.5 seconds. And then the wings are sort of fragile, so she can't fly very far off the ground during this behemoth fight because there's going to be like ambient static electricity in the air, and getting zapped by that will break certain components. So she's got 2 modes, one where like more of the things are exposed and she can move around better, and one where it's like more contracted but it is less fragile. Greg says, if Stinger didn't bee theme their missiles, they really missed out. I agree. Way too focused on the name of actual military hardware. They should be like, yes, and this is my Wasp launcher. And it fires off, a Stinger-based painted missile, whether it be bee, hornet, wasp. I'm sure there are others. Those are the only ones I can think of right now. Let's see here. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, okay, so, the arms don't have any strength in them yet, but she's still practicing. She's shadowboxing the whole time, I have to imagine. Taylor would never give up an opportunity to diligently train. Defiant explains why they don't just have all the PRT teams like kitted out in Tinker gear all the time. it takes a lot of a tinker's actual free time to maintain gear and stuff. And this is expanded upon a lot in Ward, I would say, where they'll talk about how, like, they can't just give instructions to other people because their tinker brain pretty much understands, like, really small factors or, like, things about, like, physical theories that we don't even, like, have a science for in our real life, like, you know, like unfounded disciplines, basically. And so they have all these minor things, like one thing was one of the tinkers in Ward was talking about how, like, you have to have the screw exactly in the right alignment. It's not that it needs to be, like, tightened all the way, and then, like, oh, if you have your holes, or if you have your hand over these holes in the device when it fires, it'll jam. It won't do anything bad to your hands, but you can't, like, ever have your hands over that. And there's all these, like, little things where, like, normal people can't handle tinker tech unless they have a whole bunch of specialized training. Anyway, so I think this is a really cool reason that they don't have, like it's an in-story reason that they don't just, like, why don't you do X to world break? And they're like, oh, we can't do X because of Y. And it's actually, like, feels like a solid reason. I don't know. Because in another setting, they'd just be like, well, they just didn't think of it or something. And it's like, that's not a very good answer. And then, yeah, the Dragon and Defiant are going to keep 2 of these flight packs ready, and they're going to swap them in and out when one needs charging or repairs, so that Taylor, as a hero, is able to fly around like some sort of butterfly woman. I don't know. Never thought of that butterfly angle before. No, I did. I'm kidding. It was obvious. Let's see here. So, they sort of decide to let bygones be bygones. Defiant doesn't want to be thanked, nor does he want to talk about this again in the future. He's like, I barely had the emotional strength to give you this as an apology. We'd best not speak of this again. And Taylor agrees that she can't just be emotionally vulnerable and talk about her feelings. She can't say thank you for things. But I really like the interactions between Taylor and Defiant post Arc 22. I just think that they're always really good, and they're pretty well exemplified in this chapter and in 23.1, and then in some of the later stuff, like in a few arcs from now. But I'm always happy to see these 2 on screen together. So, you know, she's reading technical manuals and things so that she'll be ready to use this flight system during the next fight. It's kind of funny. They just go into combat with untested technology and stuff. Yeah, so, oh, and she calibrates it and crap. Alright, so, they talk about how they're sort of getting everybody there by using Cape, named Silk Road, who can create, like, pockets of lensed space in a similar way to Vista to make really fast travel for things that move conventionally for non-teleports. and they're picking up all these teams, like they're bringing the Undersiders and stuff to the battle, and she's told that she's technically not supposed to extend any contact to the Undersiders, but it's Taylor. What are you gonna do? And she's even reminded that there's going to be cameras and cell phones watching her, and she's even wearing a camera. She's the person wearing the wire. She is the wire in the title of the show, The Wire. But regardless of all of this, she still does. Also, Taylor's surprised that Dragon can communicate with Defiant since she can't talk. She never picks up on the fact that Dragon is an AI during any of this portion. It's not a conclusion you would leap to, but without knowing that, Dragon and Defiant's communication situation is very confusing. Which will keep coming up, Yeah, she even brings up Miss Yamada and her having the plan to put the camera in the costume. Vic says, they flirt so silently that she didn't know. Yeah, she also didn't know they were a couple until the exact moment depicted in this chapter art. So, indeed, they flirt so silently. They don't believe in PDA, okay? But they let their daughter see each other with some very chaste touching. Their daughter Weaver. Yeah, so the Dragoncraft they're in sort of sets down in the in sort of an open field where they have got a whole bunch of Dragoncraft already sitting there, and there's loads and loads of capes. It says, it's very vague, it says 2 to 16 capes each for 20 Dragoncraft, and more are like showing up during the scene. But loads of people are here. Haven, she says a villain group she doesn't know. Corporate teams that had been at the Leviathan fight. And then the Undersiders. And then it's just so funny because, like, I know that he had said, so long as you don't do anything troublesome on camera, I don't expect anyone will make an issue out of it. But it's still, like, funny that she's told not to make contact with them, and, like, literally the exact first thing she does is fly over and talk to them. She's worried that she's gonna, like, look foolish with the new flight pack and slam into the ground right in front of everybody. So she takes it real easy and doesn't do anything flashy. But she's using the bug controls, not the glove controls. And she's sort of jumping along with a bit of anti-grav instead of really flying. And she makes a beeline rather than fly. Oh my god. She can't help it with all these bug puns in her own mind. But Tattletale starts the conversation, and it's clear that they're very welcoming and warm. There she is, and she's flying. Burp, 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 burp. And then she's saying she's just floating now. She's falling with style, as they say, and they're all smiling at each other. They're in a big group with Accord's people. Accord brought Citrine and Ligia, but seemingly no one else. In the terms of their dealy bop, he had agreed to bring a specified number of minions, and it appears to be himself and 2 others. I don't think he had to go, but he decided to go, and for as much as I think Accord is a noob, it's cool that he went here. So it's all the Undersiders, Parian, Foil, and a bunch of dogs, and those 3 Accord people. Oh, and Ligia gets a costume update. She now has a conch shell mask on her face. Some old teammate from one of the teams that was in New York shows up and hands Foil her weapon at some point, which I think is cool. Also, the costume for Foil says using asymmetrical belts, boots, armor, and gloves. So I have to imagine that Foil kind of looks like a Final Fantasy character with a fencer's mask on. Vic says a suspicious amount of Regent quips this chapter. Very cute though. Yeah. So this is when so Gru will say you're wearing your old costume. And then she says that she hadn't had much of a chance to change. Regent does quip. It's the too busy making license plates, dropping the soap. And then, Aisha chimes in that she's mad that Taylor becomes a hero. And then, is also mad that Taylor is getting away scot-free with having killed Alexandria. You're always getting out of everything. Gru's worried about her. She says she's doing okay. Regent asks why she's not arresting them before questioning them. And then, Gru gives Regent a smack. There's a lot of, loving team camaraderie in this. Much as Vic had said, a suspicious amount of team camaraderie. Almost like something bad might happen. Tattletale has done a mixture of leaving booby traps and probably also a bunch of mercenaries, so that anyone who's sort of encroaching on their territory will have a bad time. Taylor's worried about Heartbreaker specifically, since his power, once it hits, is go-backable. I guess, I don't think even he could fix it, because he could, hit you with counter emotions and stuff, but he couldn't, undo the damage he had done, I guess. So, Heartbreaker, pretty worrying, but Tattletale's not worried. Yeah, this is when Jouster gives Foil the arbalest that she had wielded as Flechette. Because, when it's an Endbringer fight, they go all out. They just keep this on file. They're like, we're gonna need this later. And then Taylor's worried here when Jouster takes her wrist and says something to Foil, but I mean, I wouldn't be worried about it. It's clearly if she saw Jouster's personality before, he's mad that Foil left. They were teammates and stuff, and she was gonna be the one in charge of his unit, so it's like a whole thing for him. And I think he's in charge of the unit she would have been in charge of, kind of thing, the Lancers within New York City. So, you know, there's... I don't know why she doesn't... She's like, I imagine there was more to that. It's like, yeah, there is. But it's like in an obvious direction. But she Taylor feels awkward that she doesn't know what to say now that she's actually with her friends. And then she basically just gives them an overture of friendship and love, and starts it off by being like, I don't know what to say, but I love you guys. Vic says, Taylor is so worried Flechette will betray her friends to become a hero. Oh, wait. Like, Flechette literally left the heroes to become a villain. And I mean, like, if this were a long-term double agent plan, it would be such a baffling one. Because if Flechette were to betray the Undersiders, it would, like, probably make Taylor flip against the hero. It doesn't make any sense. Oh, Taylor. It's, actually, you know, having recently watched the Welfin portion of the Chimera Ant arc of Hunter x Hunter, it makes me think of Welfin being like, oh no, but then they'll get one over on me. And then he'll find out a new piece of information and jump to a new conclusion. And, like, sometimes he'll make insane leaps of logic that are just really spot on, and other times he'll completely misapprehend the like, context of a situation. And he'll... I don't know. It's just funny. Taylor's like that, where she's just, like, jumps to these super far conclusions, like, from little things. And it's always in the oh no direction. But yes, she's all, I love you guys. Greg says, are you saying Flechette might pull a House of Flying Daggers? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's even more likely since as foil, she doesn't use the crossbow all the time. She, like, throws darts again. So she indeed could be throwing flying daggers if she wanted to be. And it would be in character. And then we would have to question further and further and be like, is this a triple cross or a quintuple cross? I want a story where characters change sides over and over again, like that movie Hero. Although it was just a Rashomon story, if you watch it and don't pay enough attention, it can sort of feel like people are swapping sides constantly. Not that I misapprehended what was happening in Hero. I know someone who did, and it was very funny. It's just like, so is that guy the good guy, or anyway? Good martial arts film, Hero. You know, after saying, I love you guys, you're all my family, you're my friends, I'm Dom Toretto, this is about family, then Taylor gets you know, an obvious Imp moment where Imp goes, gay! And Perry and Foyle are annoyed, but Taylor smiles and laughs, which, you know, the problem is when Taylor smiles, something bad is about to happen. So you can't just make her smile like this, Imp. You've caused the bad things to happen. And this indeed is when Regent says, are you trying to get someone killed? That's totally a death sentence. Telling someone you love them, tying up loose ends. And then Tattletale continues the joke. She'd be getting herself killed, going by the rules. And then this sort of upsets Gru. Don't say that. And then Tattletale starts off with no dying, calling her Skitter. When Taylor tries to correct her to Weaver, then Tattletale insists that she's Skitter. Here, today, you're Skitter. Consider it a good luck charm. And no dying. I'll say that as many times as it takes until it gets through to you. No dying. That goes both ways. Imp continues to pick at her. She's gone soft real quick, too. Getting affectionate, lovey-dovey. And this is when Regent says, alternate costume, too. White, light gray, baby blue, electric blue. I was smiling now. We're brought back to her saying the costume is unpainted and yet somehow still has electric blue. Unclear. Vic says, no jinxing. Look, I'm not going to jinx anything. I'm just going to say it's pretty suspicious how genre-savvy Regent is. Genre-savvy characters, I don't know. Something that happens to them. And then Taylor follows up the electric blue with, fuck you guys, I'm as badass as ever. Recommending drugs to kids, straddling a 10-year-old, forcing bugs down my ally's throat. Strangling a 10-year-old. She does straddle the 10-year-old too. I'm just saying it's a very strange thing to brag about the 10-year-old fight. I would have left that part out. I would not have brought that up, Taylor. But she whispers it as she gets in closer to Regent, so it's not picked up by the camera phone wielding heroes. Because they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's like she forgot that they weren't there. Well, she does bring up forcing bugs down my ally's throat as a... And the recommending drugs to kids, that one works. It's just the middle one. It's like... It's the whole... murder, jaywalking, and arson thing where you, in this case, she just like sandwiches in the jaywalking between the... Anyway, Greg says, come on, Taylor, it's not cool unless you also steal the candy. Yeah, exactly. Regent caps off this list of badass things such as strangling teenager or 10-year-olds with killing Alexandria, and this bums out Taylor. And she thinks that, oh man, now I'm thinking about all the heroes that hate me. And Tattletale chastises him. Taylor feels bad and says like, oh, that might actually be a problem in this fight, that she's dead. Tattletale says, I think we're fucked in general, but no sweat. And then she's about to say something probably not very convincing anyway, but she gets cut off by realizing that Behemoth is here. It says there was an uncharacteristic emotion as she swore under her breath. But a moment later after she swears, all the Dragoncraft begin to tell everybody to get into their craft so that they can be flown to the battlefield. And they separate, they say a goodbye, see you on the battlefield. And then Regent of course gives us his very emotionally intelligent, don't hold back now, we love you too. And then she leaves, calling him a jackass, and he gives a fake salute at her. And then, Tattletale calls back to her one more time. Just remember, you're officially Skitter today. Don't be a hero. No point to all of this shit if you do something brave and get yourself killed. Not sure about that. About being Skitter. Not the getting killed bit. And then she says to Rachel, the letter, it helped. All the letters meant a lot to me, except Imp's, but yours especially. And then she makes an overture at friendship that one day, after all of this is over, they're gonna throw balls for the dogs and pick up dog shit together. And then this is when Regent yells out, saying shit like that, you're signing death warrants. Stop it, you lunatic. His sarcasm levels could not be higher. I mean, it's not like, I guess the sarcastic tone isn't doing that. He's doing the over the top voice of like, I can't believe you're doing this right now. You know, either way. I need more specificity in the language that I use around the facetiousness being applied. Anyway, so she gets back into the robot with Defiant and Dragon, and this is where this exact moment with the arms around, and the door shuts automatically, which must have been Dragon, because Defiant seems surprised when she's there in a moment. But this is when it says, odd as it was, I hadn't fully parsed that they were together before now. She looks at the monitor. Behemoth, as we see in staticky silhouette here, Behemoth is displayed there, nearly 50 feet tall, and he's sort of just wading through a collapsed building. There's dragon ships firing at him from as far as they can be, and trying to sort of slow him down. The heroes that are fighting are far enough away that she can't make them out from the camera view. She can just sort of see their powers going off. And she asks about, who's fighting. She says, locals? And then Defiant, this is when he's surprised, says yes. Dragon says the name, which I'm sure that I'm going to say it wrong, but it's like Sahasi Panka. And I think that's a team name. Not like an overall large organization or anything. Or like, I don't think that is how you would say like the slang word for cape or something. But this is, Taylor is a bit shocked that Dragon can talk. She can only say a couple words at a time, and then Defiant says that Dragon felt, I'll just say it, I can't rephrase some of the stuff. She felt she needed to be able to communicate, and this is the last time we make a last-minute fix, he says to Dragon directly. Taylor tries to get a hint here, says, I'm sort of in the dark here, and then Defiant just does not address what she says and moves on. It's kind of funny. Vic says, Taylor trying to get the tea and them just ignoring her. So funny. They're like real parents. Yeah. Oh boy. And then Defiant. It says, Defiant declined to fill me in, staring at the screen. His voice was almost pained as he muttered, they're too close. It's like, when you see this, it's like such a tragedy, because like he's like, oh my god, our forces are already dying. Each cape loss is a big hit, long term, and they know they're gonna lose loads and loads of them, unfortunately. Yeah, they've got several dragon suits using like freeze rays, trying to destroy the footing beneath Behemoth, and all this stuff. And Behemoth is sort of casually does a jump when his foot gets impaired. He's just like, whoop, and then just the jump alone, like, creates a bunch of chaos and destruction, both the leaping point and the destination point. Um, uh, and then because he leaped forward, it like puts him in range of some of the capes that were running away, and they get all, he burns them up from the inside, like we saw when he showed up in Alexandria's chapter. Um, and then uh, like there's one cape that was about to escape by flying away and then gets zapped by lightning very casually. So, you know, the fight, even though our capes have not reached it, the fight has begun in earnest for these people on the ground. And they're still trying to just array forces. Um, and it's in the middle of a major city, like a city with millions of people. I think that as far as I know, New Delhi kind of dwarfs New York in population. Let me see. New Delhi population. I know it was probably less at the time, but the 2024 population for New Delhi was 33.8 million as the estimate. So, Delhi population 2011. In 2011, in real life, the population census was 16.7, well, around 16.8 million. And I think in the story they might say, like, do they say? I'll search around for a bit later, but yeah, it's just this incredibly dense, like, city, and it sprawls for a good way, as far as I know. Like, even if it was really densely populated, it would have to sprawl, because, like, New York sprawls even though it's dense too. So yeah, it's just like this crazy area for them to be trying to fight Behemoth. And obviously people only had like a couple hours total to start evacuating um, before he surfaced. So it's pretty bad, as they say. Um, and then let's see here. Apparently, there's 27 dragon crafts that are in their sort of fleet that they're arriving with. Um, There's like a weird tint to the environment around them because of the amount of like flames and I guess or no, the rosy tint is like, I guess the propulsion system causes that. I don't know. Defiant then, as they start sort of flying in, describes how there are two main types of categories of cape. Um, I tried to look up the pronunciations. I had to look it up specifically by saying like Hindi word for hot, Hindi word for cold, because Garama and which is, I think in this case pronounced Garam, even with the A at the end, and Tanda, they're both words in multiple different languages. So when I just searched for like information about the word, it was funny how many like different things came up for different cultures and stuff. So I'm like, okay, no, I mean specifically in Hindi. um, and so that was kind of funny. But I'm pretty sure it's pronounced garam without pronouncing the A at the end, even when the A is written. Because I saw versions where it was like a modifier word where it would be garam with no A at the end, but even when it was garam with an A at the end, they were pronouncing it garam. I like to go off on little tangents sometimes when there are little details like this sprinkled in. I'm like, how lifelike is this? And I saw in a tourist guide for India that if you are in like a Hindi speaking hotel, like this is how you ask for this is how you say the room is too hot or too cold. And like that's the one where I'm like, oh cool, cool. The pronunciation of this in this sentence is like contextually used and everything. So that was fun. I'll talk about the hot and cold capes a little bit more in the powers, knowledge, and world building. But they're different varieties. They don't have the same cape culture in different countries that they do in North America. Let's see here. Oh yeah, she takes a radiation pill to because there's going to be all this ambient radiation once they get there. So presumably everyone in the different dragon craft are all taking the radiation pills beforehand. Then they get the armband on. Defiant mentions that he wants the Tanda, the cold capes, to come in because they're the ones with the killer instinct. And Dragon says that they did last time. That presumably there was a previous Endbringer fight in India that they showed up for. But we'll see. And then Dragon puts a little like thing on Taylor's face, and it's like a stick-on camera. So she's got a camera on her face. But I think she doesn't have a mask on right now, because it's like one finger was under my chin and I raised it looking up at her confused. Yeah, but she just touched one side of my face. Because it doesn't say she touched one side of my mask. I don't know. Well, regardless, she then sees the Yangban for the first time on the monitor. They're all, as described in the Lung chapter, sort of identically uniformed people that have like a gemstone face mask that covers their face, so they're like completely faceless. It describes here flowing costumes with loose sleeves and pants, somewhere between a martial arts uniform and a military uniform, each crimson with a black design of horizontal and vertical lines at edges of the sleeves and pants. There were nearly 30 of them. And they all blast lasers at Behemoth, and it is peeling away Behemoth's claw, but as we sort of know as the audience, the Endbringer's density is less and less as you get further from the core. So while it might seem like a claw would be a hardened area on a normal creature, like on Behemoth, it's probably not. It's probably like some of the least dense portion of him. Endbringers are weird. And then Taylor asks who this big group of parahumans is, and Defiant explains that it's the CUI's military parahumans, and Taylor's confused. She didn't think that the CUI would come help with a fight like this. She's like, isn't the CUI xenophobic? And then, Defiant has said that this is the first time in a decade that the Yangban have left China, and they've been trying to like negotiate for them to come help, but they have always alleged that the PRT and the Protectorate are fundamentally corrupt, and the actual source of the problems currently plaguing the world. Taylor says they were right. They're right about them being fundamentally corrupt, but they're not correct about them being the source of the problems currently plaguing the world. The Endbringers and stuff would still be happening even if the PRT didn't exist. So, but yes, they were right. They're corrupt as shit. There's a bunch of problems. But I think the Yangban was also founded by Cauldron in the same way that the PRT was. So, like, shrug? I don't know. Because we see them giving, like, Cauldron vials to the people in Lungs chapter, who are presumably CUI, well, whatever the current ruling party in China in the 90s was, like, they were like government agents for that Chinese government, and they sort of nudged things in the direction with Contessa's power to get them to set up this thing. Because I think that Cauldron wanted to test out ideas all over the world, so they didn't just do one thing. You know, they have a bazillion plans. They have all the plans. They got their little thingies and everything. It helps to be able to teleport anywhere with Doormaker. Real game changer in terms of reach. So, Behemoth sort of counters the Yangban by, like, doing a big, like, explosion shockwave clap at them. And they put up a bunch of force fields. They were a little too late on some of them, and so they get, like, instantly liquefied. It's pretty horrifying shockwave effects. And then the remaining Yangban members, they extend their hands toward their fallen comrades, and weirdly, the shockwave's effects reversed in an instant, and the injured were whole, holding the positions they'd been in an instant before. Here and there, the reaction had been a fraction too slow, and the Yangban members were only reversed to the instant the shockwave made contact. Barf! But they only fail to save one Yangban. Like, some of them are more injured and stuff, but this is a pretty successful use of some sort of time rewinding power. Double liquefying is so bad. You spelled it liquefying, and I love that. Double liquefying. But yeah, so most of them survive, but one, possibly two, get totally fragged. And you know, while it's bad to have losses this early, when he's directly focused on you, sometimes these things happen. But they better not get whittled down too fast, seeing as they're most powerful when there's the most of them. Which sounds like typical, but in this case it's very direct. They all have, like, apportioned powers of all the powers, so they're, like, you know, directly one-to-one as powerful as each other at the moment. Oh, Alien Cat Daddy is here, saying, I assumed it was Cauldron's strangely to impede themselves in any system that would consolidate capes, be it the CUI or PRT. I assumed it was Cauldron strange to impede themselves. A strategy to embed themselves in any system. Yes, you're right. It is their strategy to embed themselves in those systems by essentially creating the groundwork for them, where the PRT or the Yangban could have happened organically, like without Cauldron's interference at all. But by being there at the ground floor, then they have a lot of control. So yes, I agree. But yes, the Behemoth is always like swapping methods, basically. So he goes from the clap to using like a big rolling tide of flame at them, and they all bail. They have a bunch of different movement powers, so they're flying about, moving in formation. And then Taylor's worried, as every piece of information has just made Taylor feel equally as worried as she was before. She goes, I can't tell if this is a good thing or a bad thing. And, you know, they're not sure if they're here fully as allies or what. The Dragoncraft pull up into the fight. A few more that are presumably unmanned at this point who have dumped their cargo of capes. And there's like one of those electromagnetic wheel dragon that is like pulling stuff. It's pulling the material away from Behemoth's feet to try and cause more of a pit for him to sink into. As we saw with like when they were fighting Echidna. And then you know, he's shooting back lightning at the wheel dragon, and then the wheel dragon opens its mouth and is firing like explosive containment foam blobs, so that they're like blobbing him up, you know. But you know, it's Behemoth, so he keeps going. But he's able to bring down the craft by just hitting it with the lightning over and over again. There's like 10 Dragoncraft fighting him now. They're firing like the laser beam, or I mean the ice beams. They're firing containment foam. They're really doing all the like debuff, slow your enemy spells from different games. You know, they're doing as many of those at the same time as they can stack. But yeah, he just was blasting these guys with lightning, and he takes down another craft, and it's like, oh fuck, it shouldn't be this easy. Greg says Taylor could control him if she only understood that his real name is Behemoth. And then Vic laughed and said, yeah, that's the only limitation. There's like a drone ship, which is funny. There's drones that had attacked Taylor's territory way back when in Arc 16. And they're trying to redirect the lightning to stop it from being as effective and disperse it and stuff. But then, you know, all of these things work to some degree, but then he keeps breaking through. You know, they're also probably giving Taylor ideas, because like she's gonna make her own lightning rod later in the fight with her ragtag team. Spoilies, lightning rods happen. Oh my word, the dog wants in. So, you know, he starts shooting heated wind to blast the lightning absorbing drones. And so he can just keep like swapping through all his techniques and keep hitting people who are weak to different things, because he's got the dynakinetic power, he's got the energy control, and he can do that as sound, lightning, fire, the wind as just kinetic force, I guess. And then when Taylor sees this, she's still preparing stuff. So between watching the screen, she swallows the radiation pill and puts on the armband and tells it she's going to be named Weaver, and she presses the confirm button. It has a map on it now, but it's like they're still in the Dragoncraft, so it's just like whooshing by, and there's a distance to Behemoth noted on the map. They land, and apparently, the red tint was whenever they're using like the propulsion system, because it says the red tint that surrounded everything disappeared. So there's tons of fires, there's smoke everywhere. People are trying to evacuate, but they didn't have very much notice, so everything's really crowded with people frantically moving away. Taylor sees Behemoth and like his single eye and thinks about her fight with Lung and how this is like that scenario but magnified to a huge degree in both the like danger and the ineffectiveness of what she can do to her opponent. They exit the craft, and they're at this sort of gathering spot with the Capes, like Chevalier and all these other Protectorate people, and they've got some of the crafts like putting spotlights so they can all gather properly. But Chevalier gives a speech, and I'm just gonna go for it. Read from the chapter a bit more. The ships have all arrived. I've received the data on the other participating teams. Those not already fighting will reinforce as they're able. We should expect record numbers. We shouldn't expect it'll help. Any news on the locals? And then Rhyme says, gathering and setting up defenses at India Gate. It seems to be his destination. The gate? There's nothing there. Only population. If it's not a soft target, Revel said, then we can play the long game. Buy time for Scion to arrive. Let's assume it's soft. We made that mistake once. Never again. Okay, listen up. We've already notified you if we believe you have the capacity to engage Behemoth. Anyone else is operating as search and rescue and support. Maintain a distance of at least 100 feet from Behemoth at the very minimum. Get any closer and you probably won't have a chance of escaping if he decides to close the gap. Be mindful of line of sight, because he will tag you with a lightning bolt. It's not something you can dodge. Assume every structure will fall down in a heartbeat, and know that there's no good place to hide and wait for this to be over. Keep moving. Move smart. There's no sugarcoating it. The fact that you're here today, knowing the state things are in, you're the biggest damn heroes I've worked with. I'm not going to make any big speeches. Better we get out there and save lives. Hit him hard if you see the chance. Keep an eye out for whatever his goal might be. Communicate with other groups as best as you're able. Stay spread out so he can't wipe too many of us out at once. You work best with people you know, so form your own teams. Stick with the people you've operated with before. Go. I like this because Chevalier is always doing the speeches where he says he doesn't give speeches. Every time he mentions how he doesn't do them. It's the hallmark of the Chevalier speech. And then Greg gives us the classic Firefly quote. What does that make us? Big damn heroes, sir. So Tattletale and Accord are starting to go off, trying to like get the attention of Chevalier. Defiant in this moment stops Taylor from going to the Undersiders. He directs her to the Chicago wards. She thinks that she should go to the Undersiders, but then Defiant says that Dragon thinks that she can contribute as much or more with the Wards group, and that they actually want her. So, like, that's an important thing, the fact that the Chicago Wards team want her to be there. And he says it's the smart choice, but it's your choice. And then he goes. But she goes to the group, and it is, of course, Tecton's Chicago Wards group, and Grace is there as well. Taylor says, "You're the leader, or your leader. I'm Recon," like it was in New York. And Tecton puts her in charge. "No, you're leader as long as the fight lasts." And then he justifies it that she's done more S-class threat fights and stuff. And then he was never calling the shots at the time. So yeah, we got Grace, and then 3 other people. It's Golem, Cuff, and why am I blanking on his name? He sinks into stuff. His power is to gloop onto things. Wow. Disrespect to this cape. That's what this is. This guy, Annex, that's who it is. And I also forgot to mention Wanton. Wanton and Grace are there from the previous thing, and it's Annex, Cuff, and Golem. Yeah, Vic's right, it's Annex. He got his power at the Learning Annex. Vic says, "I always forget Wanton." Oh, sorry, Wanton. We always forget. But I'd missed the Lord of the Rings movie confirmed still exists in this reality. Yeah, yeah, it's weird. It's not just the Lord of the Rings books. It's they made the movie, and Taylor watched them because she is a nerd. Greg says Wanton. Wanton is a far more delicious game. But of course, spelling it the wonton variety. Yeah, they've got these new capes. They've got 3 rookies on the team. And then all the non-core team members from the Chicago Wards had been sent other places to supplement and reinforce other groups. I like this. "It doesn't matter. I guess you 3 are getting thrown in the deep end. Names?" And then, "You named yourself after the little bastard from the Lord of the Rings?" "No, I'm thinking of changing it." "Oh, the fool. You think you can rebrand properly? You're locked in, bro." And then she fixes the pronunciation in her head to Golem, and then she says, "From the myth." And you know what? I gotta say, I understand the origins of the Golem, and that it is this Jewish myth, etc. But in modern culture, when I think Golem, I think entity that is created of a specific element. Although I sometimes think of the calzone golem that you fight in one of those canned D&D adventures. It's a very low-level monster, and it is a walking, fighting calzone in the shape of a person. But yeah, Vic says the myth in quotes, and then says, "I'd be like, from D&D, yeah." And Alien says, "I'm thinking of the Minecraft mob." Yeah, exactly. Or like a Final Fantasy monster, or like Lots of games have golems. It's a common enemy type. Which little symbol was that? There's a symbol for a wonton. That's the emoji for a wonton. I wasn't sure. It looked like a little bun. I thought it might have been right after I said the calzone golem. Anyway, also it's funny when Taylor goes, I get it, never mind. Listen, we're gonna move out, and you're gonna explain your powers en route. You know who I am? There were nods all around. You still okay with following my orders? Again, nods. I saw the Undersiders moving out along with the ambassadors. We're supplementing and supporting the Undersiders for the time being. You okay with that? A touch more hesitant. They nodded. Then let's go, I said. Greg says, was it a calzone? If not a pizza dumpling. Or what is a calzone if not a pizza dumpling? Yes. The calzone is the wonton or the wonton of pizzas. In fact, that's what we shall call it from now on, pizza wonton. I got tricked by the whoever the hell makes Chex into trying a pizza flavored novelty Chex, and it was bad. So I just want to say I'm glad that the calzone is the successful version of the pizza wonton. And you know, I don't normally try novelty flavors of things, but Pizza Pringles were the breakout hit of the Pringles franchise. So think about that. Anyway, I sort of I trailed off there, but that's the end of the chapter and the end of the Taylor chapters for this arc. So it's going to be an interlude and then into arc 24, which is more, I mean, the Behemoth versus Capes fight already started, but the Taylor's group in the Behemoth fight is what arc 24 covers. And this chapter I think is really good at doing a lot of like level setting. We already know what we've seen Behemoth fight for like 5 seconds in that Alexandria chapter. We know how bad it is. We kind of know his suite of powers from that scene as well. But everything is reiterated here. It's shown how, why don't they just do X? Well, they literally try to do a version of X, which is like the lightning rod stuff with the drones. But when you do that, anytime you counter his power, he's going to hit you with the next power. And he hits him with that like wind. We've seen him do the shockwave. We've seen him do the leap, the rolling flames. He's got all sorts. So we get a lot of information reiterated. They lay the groundwork for what the Indian Cape scene is more like, showing that it's very different from the American Cape scene, and that there are generally 2 levels to it, which would not even be apparent if you like were a part of the general public in India. And then we have this sort of arraying of forces where they're not near the Undersiders, but they're going to try and go get to the Undersiders. We have her with a like half new team, half the old team that she's already worked with, and she worked with Tecton for the Echidna fight and also in the New York thing. So she's like, you're more used to her rhythm with some of these people than with others. I didn't pick up on who Golem was, because Golem is a character we've seen before, but I didn't pick up on it until it's like directly revealed in a later chapter. I was kind of blazing through the story. I was listening to the audiobook and just like nonstop when I first was going at it. So there were things I missed, like the Golem connection. Um, Alien says they just have to learn his attack patterns. Yeah, they just got to account for each type of his attack types and exactly how he's going to deploy them. Put on some sort of headset that gives them a heads-up display of what the next move will be. I think I've seen this before. The problem with those Endbringers is they can just hold a trick up their sleeve for like years. They don't play their cards too early. Anyway, I'm just gushing over this chapter. I think it's another really amazing one. I think it's one of the ones that I don't think of a lot in my mind, this like flying in scene. But whenever I actually am reading it, like right now, I'm like, why don't I think of this chapter more often? Maybe I will going forward. But a lot of great conversations. I love the dialogue between Defiant and Taylor, between Taylor and the Undersiders. I like the new team that she's about to work with. So, yeah. All right. Moving on to arc stuff. Good way to end this last Taylor chapter. Again, the arc has been essentially a bunch of disconnected vignettes. The closest two chapters together are the previous one and this one, although they're very different in tone and obviously not in the same location. The whole arc is very like transitional between her being the villain and her working with the heroes and being on a wards team. And like the early concern in the first chapter is like there aren't any wards teams that want you necessarily, and we get that resolution here that because of her like couple times working with Tecton, he actually like kind of likes her, like, and thinks that her usefulness is like not to be underestimated and outweighs any of the baggage she comes with. So that's good. She finally made some good impressions. And yeah, like she was worried about her place in things. She was worried about how things are going to be moving forward. And like she finds a place and we'll see how things are the two statuses of those, like, I guess, major story threads that we're carrying on through this. The other major story thread of this arc is the Cauldron audit, but that's not really important to this chapter at all. It's the longer, that's a longer thread. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about the arc stuff. I will talk more about the arc drone and do a final sum up for next week when we do 23.x. Blah 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 blah. So for the characters, we got board. So yes, I'm gonna do the characters section. We see a lot of people here. I guess I'll start off with Dragon and Defiant. Dragon sort of insisted to Defiant until he did it that she needed to be able to communicate here. So she is able to speak like broken sentences, one or two words at a time. She's able to speak Hindi in a way that Defiant is not. So she's still got like a wide array of capabilities, but just like her ability to string words together is like not really there. Then let's see here. The way that the two of them are, they're finally like showing a bit of affection in front of Taylor, and I think that that's because like, yeah, we could get like easily fragged in this next fight. We know we've been to a bunch of Endbringer fights before, but still. And so I think they're more okay being a bit lovey-dovey in front of Taylor. Like I said before, basically like chaste romantic shoulder touch is like all that it is. But let's see. As far as Defiant, he's like Taylor. He's a warrior, but he's also a planner. And while he will verbalize his worrying, he's not like caught up in it like Taylor is. So it's probably better. I think he's got a more resilient mindset at the moment than Taylor. She's gonna go crazy. But he's keeping it together. He and Taylor have a lot of the same concerns about the fight, and I always find it interesting how extensive their personality overlap is, because I think they've got like lots of it. But yeah, he gives her the choice to he keeps warning her how she's not supposed to interact with the Undersiders, but then he also keeps being like, but I don't know, it's fine, I guess you can do it. And she takes like she had said, like the Weaver Skitter, I've got to become a compromise middle ground. She kind of does that here. She takes the lead of the Chicago wards and then is like, and now our first goal, team up with the Undersiders. The best of both worlds. Although, now that I think about it, I don't... Maybe it's just coincidental, but when Defiant talks about how there's the hot and the cold capes, and if you try and move between the two, then you get the worst of both worlds. But for Taylor, it's almost the opposite. Like, she's able to survive by moving between the two worlds of her cape culture, which, again, is different. So that's kind of interesting. I'm going to move on from Defiant. We get Chevalier. Chevalier / Rhyme / Revel. The three of them are sort of leading the speech to all the people. They're giving out the information. Chevalier is clearly the head leader type and is the I don't give speeches speech guy. Rhyme and Revel are just throwing in some context for the most part, but they're backing him up, of course. Accord. Again, he's here, which is a surprise to not only Taylor, but also to me. I wouldn't expect him to want to be at an event like this, even if he's sending forces. But he doesn't, he's like interacting with Taylor, or Tattletale in the distance, and he doesn't interact with Taylor at all. And then we get Citrine and Lygia. They, of course, had to come, so they'll be here. Aisha and Alec, they're giving Taylor nonstop grief. They get a lot of fun moments here. I think we all love them. Everybody in this house is an Aisha and Alec comedy duo stan. That's one of the requirements for being in this fandom, is that you must love their annoying antics. Annoying to Taylor, but fun for us. Alec is, of course, raising death flags by being far too genre savvy and bringing up death flags. The fool. Brian is like straight up like worried to the point of like we just can't even joke right now, guys. I'm freaking out. Um yeah, Greg says bringing up death flags is a death flag. Exactly. It's one of the worst ones. Um and ironically, I think that the person, yeah, I think that well, I guess it's not ironic. Weird tangently, Brian is the one who's throws up like zero death flags in this. So he's sidestepping the conversation. He's like, "I'll leave the dying to you guys." um Brian is like pretty perturbed and restrained, but he is glad to see Taylor and see that she's doing all right. The scene in this chapter with the Undersiders does make me like just wish that they got more time together. I know that there's not like story room for it, but I wish that we got to see those 3 weeks of relative calm between arc 20 and I guess arc 19 and arc 20. That's what I mean. Where there's like 3 weeks where Skitter is still masked and the schools haven't started up yet and they're repairing the city. This conversation makes me long for more of that. But it's best to be wanting more and not to be saying, no more, please. So, and then Lisa's being pretty casual until Behemoth actually surfaces, and then she instantly changes demeanor. As said before, she's gone off with Accord, and they are trying to get in touch with the leadership of the Protectorate Capes, etc. So mostly Chevalier. Yeah, again, Lisa's appearance is pretty like just generally fun in this moment. She's sort of joking along with them. Rachel is, she doesn't really say anything to Taylor. But Taylor makes sure to give her some special attention. I think the interaction that Taylor has reaching out to her and making sure to say that her letter meant something to her is really good. Taylor being thoughtful, for once. For once in her life, she was. Anyway, so the others, we've got Noobs, Cuff, Wanton, Golem. None of them do much. The only thing we know really is that they're all Powers noobs. But Taylor says that doesn't matter. That's fine. I'll use whatever. And then so we don't learn about them yet, except that they're willing to follow Taylor into battle. They're fine with this. And then I put Wanton in there. It's Cuff and Annex and Golem that should be together. And then Grace is with Wanton. I was told by people in the past that they think Grace is a bad name, and by they I mean Vic. Vic thinks that that it's a bad name. So I don't know. I think Grace is fine because like her power makes her graceful. But I think part of the thing is that Vic hates any of the names that sound like they could be a first name. Like Grace is just a normal first name in America. So yeah. Yeah, you. Indeed you, Vic. You're the one. It's too much of a normal name. That's so funny. Like the delay. You're probably just explaining it just before I say it. Uh. So yes. Normie name bad. We know that Grace doesn't really like Taylor, or perhaps didn't, but now is fine with her. But she agrees. She's fine with following Tecton's directive to have them have her as the team leader. Let's see here. Yeah, so she doesn't get any lines. Neither does Wanton. But, now we know for sure that Wanton not only survived the radiation, but was able to, make a more or less full recovery. So that's good. That's fun. And then Tecton shows that he actually, believes in Taylor. And that's pretty cool. I've only been in one, and I was never the shot caller. There was a partnership between Raymancer and me, and he's gone. She says my condolences, which, as I recall, she had a whole mental, rigmarole around why Gully shouldn't be giving condolences, but maybe she's grown up a little bit since then. Vic says, that's what I was thinking. OMG. Taylor, it's so cringe. Yes. Classic Taylor. So yeah, it's nice that that Tecton has this this view that she can lead the team and stuff, and it's very. He has very little ego compared to a lot of the parahumans we see. He's always willing to sort of do what's best for the mission. And unlike most parahumans, he's not convinced that he should be the one to make every call. But yeah, I don't know. I like Tecton. I think he's awesome. And then our final character who I am going to sort of talk about here is Taylor. Taylor is, as I have spoken about the whole chapter, very uneasy, has all these weird feelings, has the kind of fear we would expect going into this, knowing how bad things could be. And then sort of new worries with the fact that there's so many small teams, and instead of it being we don't have enough, it's oh no, we can't coordinate these people. It's the hierarchy of needs. She found the next level up of needs from we don't have enough capes is we can't organize these fools. And I mean, she is right. They have communication issues during the battle from European capes being there who don't I think there's a guy who can only speak Portuguese and stuff, and I'm just assuming stuff like that is happening all over the battlefield. They don't she walks into a situation with some people who can only speak Punjabi and has to go through a translator and stuff, and the translator admits that he's not even that good at speaking the language. Oh, Taylor, you foresaw these communication issues. It's almost like parahumans are bad at talking to each other and naturally loners. And she doesn't have a friendship gives us magical power, but she has a in unity lies strength type mindset. I don't know what to say about Taylor. I think she makes the right decision going to the Chicago Awards, not just because it's politically motivated, the best thing, but by leading this team of people, I think that she makes them much more effective, and she's like applying herself in a more useful direction than if she had just gone to the Undersiders. So, yeah. I will move on from the characters section to powers knowledge and world building. So there's that team name that, what I think is a team name, or possibly a larger group that's fighting, but I'm not fully sure. Dragon says it's, and sorry about my pronunciation, something like Sahasi Panka. And the best I could figure out doing like quick research, the first word is something like courageous to the point of foolishness. And the second word, Panka, means like 5, but with lots of cultural baggage. It seemed like the core part of the word means 5, but in all these different cultures, they had different meanings for it. It said the Tamil meaning of it, when I was like looking into it, is that the 5 is indicating like 5 fingers of a hand. So in that context, in that culture, it means like to clutch something. And like another example was that in Nepal, it seemed to skew toward the idea of a jury, like a 5-person jury. But an extended like version of the word means like a member of a village. And it sort of felt like one of those numbers, because that what I think it means in this context, since they're in India, and probably a lot of the people are like mostly Hindu or Buddhist in this area. I mean, I don't know exact demographics, but then in Buddhism and in Hinduism, there's a lot of symbology of it, like representing like 5 of something. Like the examples were the 5, I think it was the 5 sites, and the 5 like stages of the cycle of rebirth. And so there's like all these things that come back to 5 that have to do with this sort of word, and it felt a lot like how in some, like in Christian contexts, like there's a bunch of numerology, like the reason that the Jehovah's Witness people believe that there's 144,000 like open spots in heaven total, basically, is because that had been used, like, I forget the meaning of it, but like 144 is supposed to be like some symbolic number in Christianity. I only have half-assed Christian knowledge some of the time. I gotta re-look things up to confirm whenever, but this is just something I thought of, didn't have written down. Oh, and it feels like 10,000 in a lot of Eastern cultures being equivalent to saying like infinity. Like 10,000 can mean 10,000, but there's likely many contexts where it just means like unlimited, unending. So yes, Sahasi Panka, some sort of courageous band of 5 fighters, maybe. That would be like a cool team if there was 5 members. But yeah, then they talk about the Grumman and the Tanda, the hot and the cold capes. And I thought that this section was really interesting. I made the cardinal mistake of reading some of the comments for this chapter. Went down a total rabbit hole reading comments. Big mistake. Huge. I did like seeing the positive comments eventually, but I started at the bottom and scrolled up, which, not the way to do it. All the comments at the very bottom were like totally unhinged. And it was nice to finally like scroll up and get to some nicer ones, like someone saying they had just found the story read up to this point and were just loving it and stuff. And then there was Other comments like that. There were some people speculating on what would happen in the next few chapters or what the new cape's powers were, and that stuff was really fun. Like, some of those speculations were wonderful. Oh, and I did read one that was just so, like, spot on. It was funny for, like, predicting the future or whatever. They, where was it? It was, the commenter says, so the travelers had a time jumping member, Cody, who could jump a few seconds back in time and who Accord demanded be handed over to him prior to the travelers heading to Brockton Bay. And this member wasn't with the travelers when they arrived in the bay. We know Accord sometimes got rid of troublesome capes by shipping them off to the Yangban for a tidy profit and future favors. And we now see the Yangban members with the ability to time skip a few seconds back in time, just like said traveler. So there's still possibly 2 travelers on Skitter's Earth who have fallen under the power of other organizations. I wonder if we see a Kraus-Cody reunion or if Cody might attack Accord during an Embringer fight. Posted the day of the chapter release, and then Wildbow 2 minutes later posts as a response, damn it, it's impossible to get anything by you guys. So that was very funny to me. I'm glad that I stumbled upon that. But I was disheartened by some of the, like, just unhinged stuff in that comment section. And, like, people misapprehending the story to huge degrees in wildly varying directions. The comments are nuts. But anyway, moving on from that. The reason I brought up the crazy comment section, actually, is that a lot of people had thought, and again, these were all from the, like, latter comments that were pretty wild. A lot of people think that this story, like, glorifies America a lot and was really culturally insensitive to India and China and is, like, in some way bad about them. But I wouldn't say that this story is particularly pro-America. The PRT in this chapter is described by the hero of the story as a corrupt organization, and her, like, slightly, like, previous antagonist, but now, like mentor figure, like, couldn't help but agree with her on a point that he would never, like, want to concede to her if it weren't true. So, like, the story thinks that the main American org is corrupt, and it's not like saying China's the worst thing ever. Like, they correctly intuited that the PRT was corrupt. And the Indian cold capes end up being very competent, in my opinion. But it's, as Greg says in this comment, never underestimate people's ability to headcanon anything and everything. Yeah. I don't think that this story is particularly anti-America, by the way. I just think it's not pro-America. I think it's not pro any country, really. So yes, the Graham Tonda dichotomy. There's, like, the hot capes who are flashy and have obvious costumes and operate in the open, and they're more or less like a tamer version of the American cape scene. And they are, like, media figures and stuff. And then there's the Tonda, the cold capes, who are hidden from society, and they're really cutthroat. They don't have any of those, like, cape unspoken game rules where they sort of expect the other ones to be noble or whatever. They, like, they'll kill one of their enemies, like, on sight if it comes up, if it's possible, you know. Oh, Vic says, yeah, I think there's a few characters who do. I guess the idea that America is more involved in out-of-country conflicts, but I don't want to see British capes anyway. A cape who sprays beans on toast. Yeah. Oh man, I'm pretty sure the British capes are at this fight, and possibly were even at the Leviathan fight. But like, there were like 200 capes or so at the Leviathan fight, because they had like just under 50 die, and they lost just under a quarter of their forces. So there was around 200 people. Vic also says, but the story itself is just America centric because the main character is American. Lol. It's also very East Coast centric. Yeah, there's like what, two scenes in LA, and then there's like one scene in Las Vegas, and everything else is in the East. Um, which like, given my experience of the world, it's like reversey. It's like I'm also American, but this does not reflect my American experience because I'm from like Podunk State, not major city. So yeah. Um. Let's see. Oh yes. So I don't think I have much more to say about the hot and cold capes at the moment. We will get to see them a little bit more in the next arc. I think they're really interesting as a concept. The Yangban, we have seen them try to recruit Long. We know a little bit about them. As was mentioned in that one comment, we know that Accord has business dealings with them and sells them parahumans, and in this case, sold them Cody. Spoilers! Cody's the next chapter. But they seem to all be able to use all the powers of their group, which is very interesting. And as you can imagine, if you could have like 20 powers, that would be better than having one power. Unless the one power is really, really good. But yeah, they got like force fields, the time thing, laser beams, super speed, some amount of flight, like all kinds. And nobody expected them to be here. So we'll see what happens with that. For other powers, we saw all sorts of beams getting fired off, a lot of sort of like vaguely described powers because they're just like watching it over a screen. Nothing's in the thick of it. We got to re-see a bunch of like dragon ships. There were like 10 fighting and like 27 in the group transporting Taylor's people, or like, all the protectorate members and wards and stuff. So there's got to be like at least 37 ships at the fight. But as we saw, 2 got finished off very quickly. So hopefully Dragon can maybe repair mid-fight to keep pulling things back in. But yeah, they use them as frontliners so that a robot gets blown up instead of a person. I guess I don't have any more to say about powers, knowledge, and world building, except that I am quite excited for this next arc. We all love a good Endbringer fight. They're very harrowing. Stuff gets crazy. On to the audience participation. The question that I had was, what Tinker device would you have Defiant make and maintain for you as penance for the way he wronged you in the past? The answers that we've got, Vic said, since my power works through the subconscious, I would want some sort of drug bomb launcher that auto-targets our enemies to be stoned during battle. Gives me a big advantage during the fight. So you're trying to well, see, this is why you being on the hero team is a bit problematic. Vic says I'm bad at aim, because you're trying to hit him with the big weeds. You're trying to give them the weed bongs, and then the heroes will be like, you can't use the weed bongs. That's illegals. Um, and you'll be like, no. Um, just lie about what it's shooting with them with. Oh yeah, it's blasting them with melatonin. Yeah, definitely. Greg says, nah, heroes can tell kids that drugs are cool. We've seen that already. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. This is getting more justified by the second. All right, Vic, I'm granting you uh, tinker powered weed shots. Fire into people. Um, Greg says, I'd want augmented reality, the good stuff, which I have to imagine he was saying in the programmable virtual reality, the corrupt kind. But he says instant translation, seamless information, extrasensory overlays, target acquisition, and tracking. He already has tech along those lines, but I'll like it without a helmet. If he can squeeze it into contacts like Rainbow's End, that would be ideal. Yeah, that'd be lit. Having like a contact lens with a HUD that shows you everything and has like a bunch of extra information. It could probably like highlight powers or something some way. Um, Maybe give you like, if you're in a known building, it could like show you a wireframe of the walls or something so that you could kind of like see through walls in a way. Like you could only see the building layout, but that would still be really like helpful. All sorts of stuff. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Um, I hmm. I think the flight pack is really good. The Nanothorn is such a powerful weapon, but it's like almost too dangerous to have around. Like I don't want it to accidentally fall on something, i.e. me. Um, so I don't necessarily want a weapon. You know what I'd have them make me? I would uh make me some sort of healing device that would be like a dermal regenerator from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and they would have uh, in canon there's a Protectorate tinker named Cask who makes healing like reagents basically. I want them to like scan Cask's powers that are on the record and make me a little healing device so that I can heal people's skin and wounds on the battlefield. So I can like do battlefield medicing when I'm because my original character also much like Vic's has some big limitations. Vic needs them to get hit by a drug bomb. I don't have any. I'm like a power granter type, limited power granter. So the character that I had written has no real way to fight, and it would be pretty useful to have a secondary job in a fight after I dole out the powers. And it would go with that whole drugs are cool theme because I would be using technology derived from Cask, who basically makes tinker drugs. Um, all right, all right. My answer be done. You know, I don't know how many people listen to this total. The view counts are not high. Maybe other people will listen in the future, but I do see that some people do watch it after the fact. If you ever have answers to these questions, feel free to put it in a comment. I will read it on a later episode if you leave it in the YouTube stream comments. So just know that. Um. Anyway, there's all the answers we got. I unfortunately was having a difficult time coming up with a question for the Cody chapter. Maybe my question should be like, do you think Cody's a huge piece of shit? Like, even after this chapter that kind of is sympathetic towards him, doesn't he still seem like a real dick? I don't know how some fans read like all of the Krause stuff and then this Cody chapter, and they're still on the side of Cody against Krause. It's like, in terms of a teen dispute, Krause is mostly in the right, and Cody sucks. But anyway, I'll figure out a question, and we'll write it down. Or more likely, Vic will figure out a question. Anyway, I'm going to start up the outro music. I don't have I don't have much more coherent to say, and I'm not going to try and do that thing where I try and think of a question before ending the session. Bye, everybody, and thanks for being in the stream. Let's read these old outro things. We got the music being used here that we're listening to is Imago by ScarlettXOX. You can find her work at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. And as always, she will theoretically be streaming in the future at yet to be announced date. The Discord server, the link can be found in the stream description as well as the channel description. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com, and the fan-made audiobook of the entire work is available at audioworm.rain-online.org. Thanks again for listening. Greg said cheers for the stream. Cheers, Greg. Just mute my mic unless somebody says another goodbye or whatever.